We are rolling into week 15. We got to look at the waiver wire. We got to look at these wide receivers. This is the video where we look at pretty much all the wide receivers on the waiver wire. We go one by one, talking about all of them, helping you make your choice. Just through me looking at the numbers, talking ball on them. When we look at the waiver wire wide receivers right now, there's no must-gets. There's no must-haves. There's guys that you're plucking and praying with, honestly, and that's what you're doing. But when you look at the numbers, maybe you can pluck a better guy than what you're originally going to pluck. Still gambles, but when you're laying your money down the line, sometimes you want to get another opinion. I'm that guy. Before you dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now because we're going deep on the waiver wire. More waiver wire videos tomorrow. We're doing deep dives on these players. We're looking at the NFL draft. We look at high school players, and we help you set your lineups with the must-start videos. Click that subscribe button. Stop missing out. We're starting with our first waiver wire wide receiver on the board. Not all these guys are going to be on your waiver wire. They will be on somebody's, but we're going pretty deep here like we do every single week. Elijah Moore needs to be rostered in every league. He needs opportunity to be rostered. Even though he's not cashing every game, he's getting the work. He's getting opportunities. He's running a lot of routes. He's getting a huge snap share, 83.3%. Jerry Jeudy's a guy, but he's a guy that's giving you some opportunity. And this was a low game here against Steelers on the road. He was due to have a low game against the Steelers. 9 targets in both games together against the Steelers. But coming up, we got Kansas City. I don't think you're going to want to start him, but I don't think you're going to want to start anybody from this list anyways. You're not going to want to start anybody from this list because these are the waiver wire jabronis. However, going up against the Chiefs, a wide receiver that's going to be used a bit in the slot, used a bit on the outside, moved around when teams have to get creative against the Chiefs. And honestly, you got to make a harebrained lineup start. Elijah Moore could be your dude. After that, you got Cincinnati on the road, and you got some other matchups to look at. Elijah Moore's running a lot of routes, seeing targets. But maybe for you, maybe not. Can I interest you in Quentin Johnston? Because Quentin Johnston will make you cry when you bench him, will make you cry when you start him. And I've seen that a lot in the comment section, and I'm saying it again. He will make you cry if you hold on to this stock long enough. He is a player that you just put in your lineup and you pray with. Just like Elijah Moore and a lot of these other players. He's not a dependable wide receiver for fantasy football. You look at the numbers. He had that 3-touchdown run, 3 games back-to-back where he was scoring touchdowns. Then he had back-to-back where in 2 games he scored 3 fantasy points in total. And then last week he goes off. What are you going to get from Quentin Johnston? I do not know, but I can tell you this from week to week. You're either getting a good bit or you're getting nothing. That's what Quentin Johnston is. He's a boundary wide receiver. He's got to cash in on those deep balls. He's got to cash in on those big plays. If not, you're not getting much out of him. That's what he is. The air yards are okay. The target share week to week is usually around a little less than 20%. 24.1% last week with 7 targets. A good game against the Chiefs. Usually offenses do have to get creative against the Chiefs. Broncos. You do have Broncos in 2 weeks. You got Tampa Bay coming up. However, if you got to make a gamble, this is a wide receiver you could do that with. Jalen McMillan's trending up, and I said this was going to happen. You just can't predict which game. We got some more good matchups coming up. Chargers on the road, Cowboys on the road, Carolina Panthers in the championship game, running an 80% snap share. The route participation rate's not up yet from where I get my numbers, but a 25% target share, and usually he's running about an 80 to 90% route participation rate. So if the ball's flying in a game, the ball's going to go his way. He's going to get opportunities. 4 catches, 59 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's not going to score 2 touchdowns every given week. He's going to be up and down. It's the Mike Evans show. Kate Otton's getting targets. They target the running back a lot. So for a wide receiver too, you're going to be highly volatile unless you are Chris Godwin. He's not Chris Godwin, but we do have some talent here. There's going to be a game where he hits again. It's probably going to be somewhere between now and the end of the year, which that's kind of obvious thing to say, but there's going to be another game where he hits. I can't predict it, but it will have another hitter between now and the end of the season. So if this is a wide receiver you want to play with in your lineups, throw him in. Pray that that game happens when you put him in. Nick Westbrook did not score a touchdown. He was due to not score a touchdown. We had 2 targets in this matchup, a 50% catch rate, 13.5 average depth of target. Deep ball city. With that being said, you either cash or you don't. Slow-paced game. Higher-paced games is when you want to look at him. However, he was on that hot run, and you keep riding that hot run till it goes, or at this moment of juncture, you knew that hot run was over or going to be over soon, and you kind of stay away. A lot of people started Nick Westbrook. He has a lot of upside week to week, but also a lot of downside. And we said that during his hot run and during those multiple weeks, the targets were not heavy. They were starting to increase 6, 5, and 8, but prior to that, 4, 6, and 3, and it's the Titans. Are you going to trust the Titans? This is not a player you trust in your lineup. This is a player you look at and you throw in, you gamble, you pray. That's it. That's the end of the discussion with him. Keon Coleman, watch and see if he comes back. And again, he's a gamble wide receiver. He's got some upside. He gets targets downfield. When he's on the field, he can hit in some matchups, and he also busts in your lineup in some matchups too, because he's a volatile play in fantasy football. Brandin Cooks is a volatile wide receiver. The Cowboys are volatile. They're up and down. Targets deep downfield. You're not going to 100% trust them. But if you want volume downfield, a lot of routes ran, here you go. Another wide receiver to look at. He's going to be up and down. He's going to be up and down. If he was always on the up, he would not be on the waiver wire. That being said, you got Carolina on the road. You got Tampa Bay. You got a chance for some fantasy production. Can't guarantee it, but you can guarantee he's going to be on the field running routes and getting targets deep downfield. MVS is a cash play, home run threat every week. I like him better than a lot of waiver wire wide receivers, and he's starting to build up a little bit of consistency. He's not always going to hit on the top end, and he's probably going to have a bust week somewhere, but the volume's increasing a little bit. The air yards are always going to be there. I love that about wide receivers, and I love that when you're looking at a wide receiver off the waiver wire, that he's always cashing for those deep targets, and he's only getting a few a game. For him, it's about 3 to 7, so about 5-ish, 4-ish a game. And if you can bring in one of those deep targets, he can win your week. If he doesn't, and he just brings in a target here and there and gets you like 10 points, 8 points, 9 points, he's only like a few points off from the other waiver wire wide receivers that did okay. So why not shoot for that upside and let it bust in your face? Just try to win by the gun. Just try to win by the gun. This is the type of wide receiver you can do that with. Ray McCloud gets volume. It's been trending up. Look at him since week 10. 4 targets, 6 targets, 6 targets, 11. He's running a lot of routes. Should be rostered, especially compared to the other wide receivers we've looked at. And you're looking at this run of targets right now. That's pretty damn solid. That's pretty damn solid. So if you're looking for something consistent when it comes to routes ran and targets, Ray McCloud, can't guarantee he'll hit because he did have a slew of bust games earlier in the season. But he's been a hitter lately. Adam Thielen, because if I don't have him in here, someone's going to ask where he's at. Last week, I had him in every waiver wire video but one, and I caught that. He shouldn't be on the waiver wire, but judging those statements, maybe is somewhere. But 11 targets, 10 targets, 22 targets in his last 2 games. We're starting to run more snaps. We're running more routes. We're getting more opportunity. The ADOT's looking good for him too. Panthers are in weird game scripts. You got Dallas coming up, Arizona, Tampa Bay. Nothing super locked down here. Adam Thielen, of course. Xavier Legette, more of your home run swing wide receiver. We got that 4.3 speed, but we're running a lot of snaps. 62 snaps last week, 25% target share pretty much. A good ADOT. Ball's going downfield to him. That being said, he's a good gamble, dart throw, wide receiver to look at. Devaughn, Vele, low game in week 13. Coming back from the bye, but prior to that, we were hitting a little bit. We might continue to hit. Bo Nix is good moving the ball around the offense. He's good checking it down and looking around the offense. So there's probably going to be some games where it's very ambiguous with these wide receivers. Devaughn Vele has been a staple. Look for him to continue to do well in this offense, but look for it to be off and on as well. Christian Watson is a gamble wide receiver. I mean, just look at him since week 9. 9 fantasy points, 21, pretty much 0, 9, 16, splash play, gamble option. If he's there on waivers, you know what you're doing here. You're throwing him in the lineup, you're closing your eyes, and you're hoping he brings in a deep ball or a couple extra targets goes his way. Dubs should be back sooner than later, and honestly, it doesn't matter. If he brings in the deep ball, he brings in the deep ball. If he doesn't, he doesn't, and that's where his bread is buttered. Ricky Pearsall is a dart throw wide receiver. More for deeper leagues right now, traditional 12-team leagues. You can't trust to start him. I'm looking at some of these matchups going forward. Rams, Dolphins, Lions. You're looking at some of these. Some of these could be pushed a little bit. We could be later in the season where he gets more opportunity, more work. That being said, he could surprise you down the line. If I'm in a deeper league, I'm looking at him. If I'm pretty good at wide receiver, I'm not looking at him as a stash option. I'd rather stash running backs. So he's a good entry into this video to talk about that. stash running backs over wide receivers, have enough to cover your nut for your lineup, plus maybe a little bit extra so you can have some decision-making abilities off your bench. But after that, no stashes at wide receivers. There's no stashes off the waiver wire. Look how I've been talking about these wide receivers right now. There's no stashes off the waiver wire at wide receiver. Get your stashes at running back. Noah Brown's been running a lot of routes, getting opportunity, and we're coming off a bye. We had a rib issue. That being said, we got some games coming up. We're running a lot of routes. We're getting targets downfield. Targets have been solid. 6, 6, 7, 4, 10, 4. We've been getting good volume in this offense. That could lead to fantasy production. Alec Pierce, he's deep ball city. He's up and down. I love that about waiver wire wide receivers. Those are my favorite type because if you score less than baseline, ain't going to be too far off. 5 fantasy points ain't too far off from 10. It just does not feel good. It hurts your nutsack. However, when you look at Alec Pierce, he has the potential to score you 30. 25 to 30 on any given game. We've seen that a few times this year. We have 19.6 in Week 10 against Buffalo. He can cash on any given Sunday. That's what I like about him because of that gamble option. If you do not want that in your lineup, do not pick up a guy like this. Get something a little bit more steady. Kayshon, Boutte, and the Patriots wide receivers. Boutte runs the routes. We're seeing Demarcus Douglas get the targets. He's a little bit more reliable on the baseline for fantasy football. Baseline, I mean like 10 to 12 fantasy points to cover your nut in your scoring to not break you if you bust. Kayshon Boutte will bust, but he's running so many routes, he's got to definitely hit sometime. Kendrick Bourne is an upside play. Does not run near as many routes as Demarcus Douglas or Kayshon Boutte, but he is getting some deeper targets downfield. Play these wide receivers how you want to. However, I just kind of gave you the 4-1-1 on them. Donnie Wicks is an upside play. He's very good at creating separation. He's got upside on any given Sunday. He's part of the Packers carousel effect here. However, not running as many routes as Doubs, Reed, and Watson. That being said, I don't think I need him. I don't think I have to have him. If I'm in a deeper league, I'm stashing him. 16, 18, 22 team, whatever. However, Donnie Wicks here has some upside week to week that could cash somewhere down the line or next year or sometime. Troy Franklin, deeper league play right now. You're not trusting him in 12-man leagues. However, he is getting targeted at a good clip when he's on the field. About like 22% of his routes he's getting targets because he's got a rapport with Bo Nix. That allows him to hit sometimes. And when I say hit, I mean minimal. 9.5 PPR fantasy points in week 11. Scoring a touchdown, but he'll get that work. He'll get that work sometimes. He'll magically come up with 3 or 4 targets. Deeper downfield, red zone looks. He is a good wide receiver, just young and on the come up. Michael Wilson, boundary wide receiver, will get opportunity to score fantasy points here and there. Really depends on the matchup and how Marvin Harrison Jr. is faring in that game. But he's a guy you can throw in. Hopefully something happens. He does have a lot of down weeks. He's a lottery ticket, roller coaster wide receiver who will have a lot of down weeks. And his up weeks are like 14, 15, 16 PPR fantasy points. But again, boundary wide receiver who could cash in some games. Demarcus Robinson, if Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp is getting covered hard and they overlook him and the coverage busts, he's going to have a big game. We've had that a couple times during this. A few times where he was able to sneak out, get that target, get the score. That's what you're gambling on. He's going to bust a good bit of times, probably about half to 60 to 65%. The other times, 10 to 20, something like that. But again, Demarcus Robinson, a good gamble play if that coverage busts on you. But those are the wide receivers we're looking at. Pick your poison. It's not like we got any must-get wide receivers, but we got some good YOLO upside guys in there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. Thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.